Please also note that this session will be recorded and photos will be taken for publicity purposes. At the same time, we are also doing live streaming on IG, so public viewers can join us in the session as well. Thank you so much for your kind cooperation. So without further ado, we'll now have each panelist to share about themselves, like what you all do in your organization, and then also like a short description of the functions of the team. Yeah, but first off, maybe let me introduce myself again. Yeah, so just like I mentioned, I'm Jiaying. I'm currently working in Community Chest. So you can count us as like a centralized body where we channel resources from the donors to the social service agencies who in turn support the communities in need. Yeah, so I'm actually here today also because I'm actually in charge of the education portfolios, including NTU as well. Yeah, so that's why it's very relatable to, like why am I here today? And definitely it's also very refreshing to return because I graduated in 2019. Yeah, just that I'm actually representing the company instead of coming here in my own capacity. Yeah, so maybe let's have the panelists to share more about yourself. Yeah, so let's go this way.
Hi everyone, first of all, thank you for having me here. My name is Anna and I'm the co-founder of Unseen City. So Unseen City is a youth-led ground-up initiatives. What we do is we try to shed light on marginalized issues and uncover hidden issues in Singapore. I think part of it is trying to see how we can put our privilege and try to support people who are under-resourced. On top of that, I think what we do is we focus on thematic topics. So things like low-income families, things like low-quality sex education, things like identity, so on and so forth. Yeah, maybe I'll just stop here first and then we can continue later on.
Hello. Hi, my name is Zoe and I'm from Samaritans of Singapore. So what I do in SOS is that I'm actually part of the ACE team. So what ACE stands for is Advocacy, Communications and Engagement. And my portfolio includes fundraising, donor management and training programs. I'm just curious, like, can I have a show of hands who knows about SOS? Okay, thank you so much for the answer. Right. So SOS is a circular non-profit organization and we specialize in 3 phases of suicide prevention, post-prevention and intervention. So our ultimate mission is to be a available lifeline to anyone in crisis thinking about or affected by suicide through our various programs and services. Yeah. Okay, I think I can pass on the mic to Gary first.
Hi, Gary here. I'm from Care Corner Singapore. Care Corner Singapore is a multi-services social service agency. When I say multi-services means that we do a lot of things. So we provide services to children, youth, family, mental health, as well as seniors as well. So we have about 43 service points across the islands, and I think staff strength we're probably about 520 staff strong. We have been around since 1981, so close to 42 years already. Yeah. So I look after the volunteer community engagement team. And as part of our work, so basically what that means is that anything to do with volunteers, anything to do with community engagement within Care Corner, my team will be the one that will be responsible for it. The other aspect of our work, the other aspect of our work is we take care of 3 SG Cares Volunteer Center that's located in Toa Payoh, Woodlands and Tampines. So what that means basically is that we look after the volunteering needs within the town of Toa Payoh, Woodlands and Tampines. And basically we try to consolidate and curate volunteering opportunities and then recruit volunteers for the town. Right, and we will also help our partners to actually screen the volunteers and then to deploy the volunteers to them. And then another aspect of our work that we also do is what we call the SG Cares Youth Corps Development Team as well. So this is a small team that we have that looks specifically into youth volunteerism. Yeah, so that's overall what my team does, what my team look after. By the way, I'm also a graduate of NTU, but I graduated way probably when you're still in primary school. So I graduated from NTU slash NIE. So fun fact about myself, I was a PE teacher. So I graduated from here for 2004, yeah.
I see. So now that we actually know the functions of the organization, I think we also want to know a little more about why each of you actually joined the organization. Especially for Gary, you say you started off as a PE teacher. So what made you decide to join Care Corner eventually? So maybe since you have the mic, maybe you can continue sharing from here as well.
Okay, okay, I don't want to bore you with the stories here and everything. I think for me, it's really about so it's a mid-career switch for me. Being a teacher and then joining a private training consultancy, applying my teaching skills as well as other things. So I kind of reached a place where I decided that I want to use my skills that I have for better use, to better the community, to better society. Yeah, so that's very unsexy way of telling you why I joined the organization. So Care Corner was not my first social service organization. My first social service organization was actually the Association for Persons with Special Needs. And I'm really glad for that journey because I get to understand and know the issues surrounding people or persons with special needs, especially intellectual disability. Yeah.
Right, so for myself, I know that I've always wanted to contribute back to the society ever since I started working, but I kind of do not know how. So one thing led to another. I joined a social service sector, which is SOS. So actually SOS is the first non-profit organization that I work for. And yeah, I never looked back since. I feel that it has been a very rewarding and fulfilling experience for me, and being able to raise funds and provide training programs to the beneficiaries, to the youth, and to anyone who is interested in our programs and services. I felt like it is an achievement for us because we are able to educate and teach them essential knowledge and skills on how to be maybe a better peer supporter and how to be a first respondent to anyone who might be in crisis. Yeah, so that's the story for me. Yeah.
See, I think it's, although we say that it's very cliche, right, saying like, we want to give back to community, but I think that's the sole reason why we are all here today, because we all share this, we have the same heart for the community. Yeah, so it's nice to hear your personal stories of why you decide to join the organization. Then, but I know that, there's a little different for Unseen City because you're actually the co-founder, right? So like what makes you want to, actually start, this whole journey, which is actually very difficult, I believe.
So for me, I think what I realized, I have been volunteering for a while, and I realized that while I have been in this social impact scene, some of my friends are not very interested in the issues. When I talk about social inequality, they just like shun away. They won't really like be involved in the issues or conversations that we talked about. Then I think maybe that's where like the gap is. So my hypothesis is okay, because the information and topics is always in this very formal at places like newspapers. You see them on social studies textbooks. But imagine when you're a secondary school student, social studies wouldn't be like one of the most important subject that you place importance to. So what I felt might be more useful, and also putting my own experience in, was how can we make this learning more accessible? How can we make it more fun? So we tried different methods. We realized that, okay, there is a group of friends like in my vicinity that enjoys reading manga. They like to watch anime. So I was like, okay, maybe this could be a method for us to integrate and get people to be inspired to be involved in this social impact space. So this Unseen City project, we first started as our FYP in Ngee Poly. I think thereafter we realized that, okay, there is this base already that we're working on, and it's very wasteful to just let it go. And somehow we felt like there is area for us to come in as well. So since 2020, we have been working with different volunteers from different backgrounds. Some of them are working as well. My role mainly is I work with volunteers and also find content and perhaps also looking for opportunities in terms of like looking for funders, because after all we are a ground-up initiative, we don't have any association with any formal organizations, so that would mean that we are really from the ground up. We will have to find our own resources, resources in the sense like people, time, and also resources. Because when we first started, we only had like 2 or 3 of us, yeah, up to 5 max. But that is a very small team for us to grow and do more things. So right now we are actually focusing on thematic issues. And we're exploring more into sexuality education and how can we get people to understand more and also see the importance of it. Because I think end of it, it also leads to other issues, like say teenage pregnancy, homelessness, and the list is as long as one is willing to be involved in the space.
I think I have to say it's very inspiring because for Gary to join Care Corner, who has a very long history back, versus Anna, who actually started up like a SSA, non-profit organization. So that's why I think for participants, you can start to think of questions you want to ask them as they continue to share more. Yeah, so maybe I know that you all have different portfolios within the organization, but definitely you have interacted with volunteers there and then. So maybe can we start off with sharing some of the memorable experience that you have with like a volunteer? Yeah.
Okay, so while I do not manage the hotlines or contact services, I do hear stories from our beneficiaries through our volunteers that our offerings on our programs and services actually do touch their heart and make a difference in their life. So that in itself is very memorable to me. So one of the most memorable experience that I hear from my volunteer manager is that during circuit breaker, where everyone is kind of forced to stay at home, and that we are actually quite afraid to go out because we're afraid that we will contract like COVID-19 and we will be hospitalized and we will actually be infecting our loved ones and such. Like we are all very afraid of the things that might happen to us, that might put our health at risk. So it's actually very heartwarming that we do actually see our volunteers who write into us saying that they are really readily available to volunteer, even the midnight shift. If there's any urgent appeal, they will be readily available. So it's also an assurance to the public that we are just one call away and one text away, even in the darkest period of our lives or in the darkest period of the nation's life. Like if you are in distress, we are still here for you. If you are at home, we are still here for you as well. We just one call away, just call us at 1767 or just text us through WhatsApp. We'll be there for you. So to me, this is quite a more memorable experience because they actually put the beneficiaries' concerns and life above theirs.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear that. Yeah, maybe posing it to Gary, who has a closer contact with volunteers. Maybe you can share a bit more as well.
Okay, I can think of 2 examples, and one example is actually we ran in Care Corner under our education therapy service. We run a reading program, and so this reading program is meant for students who their literacy ability is still way below the baseline. And so we thought that we want to get volunteers to actually go into their homes to actually read to them, and so we recruited a few of these volunteers. And what was striking was that typically when we do volunteers to go into the homes, right, we usually pair them up, right, for safety as well as for accountability sake. And so these 2 volunteers that visited this family, right, they are very observant, and they will notice that this family, the house, is quite dull, and quite dark, So they kind of rally their group of friends to see whether shall we help them to repaint the house, right? And they do all these things at their own cost. Right, so we didn't even know about it until a few months later. Then we were having an appreciation event for them, and then just asking them to share stories, and we heard this, right? And we realized that the volunteers are helping in their own ways, right, to help the families that they're befriending. Then another case that we know of was also another volunteer befriender that befriended a family, and unfortunately, the husband passed away. But before the husband passed away, because he was a cancer patient, right, and needed to go to the hospital very frequently. And again, the pair of befrienders, right, on their own accord, right, they rallied their friends to actually do a schedule, right, to see, and the wife is busy working, so the wife couldn't accompany the husband to the hospital at all times. So this volunteer rallied their friends, right, come up with a schedule, right, like Monday, this date, which who will actually send him to the hospital and then bring him back Wednesday, that kind of thing. So we hear consistently hear stories like that, and then when the husband passed away, the volunteers, this group of friends, right, they also rally around the family to help them with the funeral wake, and all these sort of things. And so it's very, very touching that, a lot of times we see that all these are acts of volunteers, right, who really go beyond what was required of them in the first place. And it's really very heartwarming to see this. So this, like sometimes what we see in social media, right, like the restoring the faith in humanity, right? So it's really very nice to see that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gary. So I think this question may be also a bit different for Anna, right? Because just now, as I conversed with you, you do share that your staff are actually volunteers, so they actually work with you in their own free time. So maybe any special episodes with them? Yeah.
I think because we're quite new, so the most memorable experiences my volunteers are always at the start, like how we get things started. So one of the service workshops that we do is to gamify experiences so that learning can be made more fun. And the whole gist is having participants to be split into families of different socio-economic status, and then from that game to understand what is it like to be in the shoes of these different people, and also to see and compare the different privileges that exist within that game itself. I think when we first started, the volunteers we had were very shy. They were like, no, I cannot lah, I need to talk to people, I need to facilitate a group, I never do before, I cannot. And I think it's very heartwarming to see how, given the opportunity and how they overcome their fear, they're still able to be in that space to really facilitate quite well. And I think it's memorable for me because it's also the experience of having all these different volunteers coming into one space, working together. I think this togetherness is something that helps to keep the group going, and that's one of the most memorable ones for me.
See, I think Anna actually shared a point that I want to bring out, which is actually, I think just now you mentioned that some of them are very shy in the first place, and then I think they really come out of their comfort zone. So I just want to pose questions to you whereby, what are some challenges you face when you interact with these volunteers? So it could be in many areas whereby it could be certain concerns that's raised by the volunteers themselves, or maybe for Gary, when you do you face any difficulties in managing the volunteers? Yeah, maybe you want to share a bit more about this. Yeah, challenges faced.
Right, so for challenges, I can think of three things. So for SOS, right, of course the expectations of volunteering in different organizations is different, so there might be some misalignment of expectation. So in this sense, we have to actually brief them during the recruitment phase and maybe after the recruitment phase, so that we can align our expectation with SOS as well as the volunteers who are readily available to help our clients in need. So that would be one. And second challenge would be that sometimes volunteering can be a lonely journey. Sorry to say that, but it can be in our line of work when we talk to our beneficiaries on hotline or care tags. They might feel lonely as well, as much as the clients might feel lonely themselves as well. So in that sense, when they feel lonely, they might also easily get overwhelmed with the conversation that comes to them, because it might be entirely new and it can be mentally challenging for them to respond accordingly. So in this sense, we do actually have regular check-ins from our volunteer management team to our pool of volunteers, and that there's also opportunity for cross-deployment. So meaning to say, okay, so SOS we do provide 24 hours hotline and 24 hours care tech services. So let's say I'm a volunteer for care tech, and I realize that I get burned out easily, attending to our clients over care tech services via WhatsApp, I can actually have an opportunity to get trained for our hotline service. So there is this opportunity out there. And then the third one would be maybe a sense of disconnection, like being left out in the pool of community in the volunteering space, because we have about 400 volunteers and not everybody knows each other, right? So when you come to the forum to pick up calls and talk to the client, you might not necessarily know the other volunteers as well. So that would be one of the challenges they face, that they feel left out. So as such, right, we do have like regular interactive engagement activities for everybody, so that everybody gets to know one another, like as much as we can, to know like the 400 of like everybody. And we do also have our luncheon, dinner, to recognize their efforts. I won't say success rates, but maybe more of their efforts and the time and effort they have taken to actually devote to actually taking care of our clients. Yeah, so because ultimately, right, we want to create an inclusive and welcoming space for the volunteers when they come. So with such set of challenges, we do have various measures in place to make sure that they are taken care of.
So for us at Care Corner, we see volunteers as a very important resource. And because it's a very important resource, we go by the principle that we want to treat volunteers as assets, right? And being assets will only either appreciate or depreciate, right? So whether how they appreciate and how they depreciate will really depends on how you actually engage with them, right? Challenges, I will say, I think Zoe has very list out all the 3 challenges. Probably provide one more or 2 more. One is assumptions. I think sometimes volunteers come in with certain assumptions, and I think that's fine, because I think due to a lack of interaction, with the group of people that we are trying to help and serve, right? It can be easily resolved with a proper briefing and sometimes even training as well. So also a lot of times we also want to help to educate a little bit. Like for example, a lot of volunteering groups will have this assumption that if they want to do volunteering, I will do food rationing, right? I give out food. I go to the supermarket and I buy the food, and everything. And typically, what kind of food do we buy? We buy packets of rice, right? We buy canned food. We buy Kellogg cornflakes. We buy things like that, right? And this is one of those things that I aim to educate volunteers. And so since I have this platform, let me share this with you all. So if we look at this, right, and then imagine you yourself eating such food, right? Instant noodles, rice, just rice with canned food and cereals, and all this food, right? And imagine yourself eating such food over a prolonged of time. What will happen to your health? You'll be bad, right? All this food, I just talk about high sugar, high sodium, everything that healthy SG say don't do it, right? So these are some of the things that we also have to think about. Like, if we are concerned about nutrition for ourselves, right? We want to eat healthy food, then the families that we are trying to support and help, they ought to have the same accessibility to the same nutritious and healthy food as well. So these are some of the things I in my limited, because my team will be the one that will actually talk to them. So whenever I have the opportunity, I will actually talk about this issue. I think the second challenge is commitment. I think, unfortunately, this is also sometimes charities, agencies, we have a role to play. We are complicit to this as well, right? We prefer to have regular volunteers, right? And then when we want regular volunteers, we expect a commitment of like 1 year, like 2 years, the kind of things. And obviously, such length and duration of commitment scare anybody, right? Even if I tell you, like, can you volunteer with me, but you must commit to 2 years, I don't think any one of you here will actually put up your hand to do it, right? The guys, you think about NS 2 years, you also was 闲几瓜, right? Right. So it's the same concept. So these are some of the commitment is a real battle, and is something that as charities we do have to manage, like with the need for regular volunteers, but yet volunteers really they want to, but they kind of just want to suss you out first, right? They want to test you out first. They want to try you out and see whether there is a connection, whether there is a alignment of values, there's an alignment of objectives, and stuff like that. So that has to a place, a platform to be given to volunteers to be able to try that out, right? And so what we have done also have on purpose intentionally break up our regular volunteering opportunities, right, into 3 months, right? So that is lower commitment, but at the same time, volunteers have the opportunity to be able to try out, and then we will talk to the volunteers before the end of the 3 months to see whether they are happy to extend, right? So these are some of the things, ways, challenges and ways we actually try to overcome them.
Yeah, I think Zoe and Gary point out something very important about time management, time commitment, burnout, and actually these are certain concerns that are also flagged out by some of the participants yesterday also. So I think maybe also for Anna, because your team is like working a lot on volunteers, right? Do they also face such issues of time commitment, burnout especially? So how do you like work with them to overcome all these challenges also?
Exactly like what Zoe and Gary has mentioned, time commitment is one of the issues or challenges that we're facing also. I think based on my own like volunteering experiences, I also sometimes find it challenging to commit to so many things. I mean, I also am studying, so I have to keep up with my modules in school. I have volunteering, right? So that's like another commitment. Sometimes you have like family events, sometimes you have your own like CCA, your school projects, and that itself is like, yeah, it takes a lot of time. And being in that position, I can see why volunteers might drop out or they might not be able to commit for long. That's something that we are trying to work towards to solve the issue. So what we did was, my team, we kind of discussed like how can we make this more accessible for volunteers. So we were thinking of having it in our own time on target basis, in the sense that the volunteers, if they are able to tell me that, okay, I can do this one task for this 1 week, and I think that's good enough. As long as they keep to their promise, I think I will place my trust in them. Apart from commitment, I think it's also because of like 3 months commitment, 1 year commitment that sometimes scares away the volunteers that are potentially interested in the cause. So recruiting volunteers is also one of the challenges. But I think as long as we are interested in the issue or the topic, the time can be like split more meaningfully. As in, you have the control of how you want to spend your time. And if you feel happier to give back, then maybe that's something that you can compensate and to negotiate. It doesn't mean that as a student I have to focus my Monday to Sunday on studying also. But I would imagine that being in that space of just studying will be very boring because you're just like reading words and over again. But in this volunteering experience, I find what's more meaningful for my volunteers is that they're able to see the other volunteers, to kind of meet people outside of their network, because our volunteers, we come from, there are some of them are studying, some of them are working as well. So in a way, you don't just see someone and like do your own stuff, but you can share wisdom. And in the sense like, how can I do this better, or how even outside of volunteering scope, in terms of maybe career prospects, you can build that network and also get some career advice as well. I would say that volunteering is a bit like job, like recruitment also. When we want to recruit volunteers, it's a bit like HR, like what Gary mentioned in our own chat. And the thing about volunteering, I think it's a very good platform for people who have not have any work experience prior, in the sense that they are able to try out and see whether this is a social cause they're interested in, whether this is a job scope that they're interested in as well. Because I think in the conventional volunteering scene, when someone says volunteering, you will think of it as, okay, planning a day to go to old folks' home and organize an events and spend time with elderly. But I think across the past years, like volunteering has changed so much, and now we see things like skill-based volunteerism. So it's where students or volunteers, it doesn't have to be like students also, just people who have different skill sets that are able to contribute to the organization. So in a sense, like if this organization requires brand awareness, then maybe if you have skills in like designing, things you learn in school like communications, copywriting, these are also skills that are worthy to be contributed to organizations. And I think it's this understanding that if students can see that, okay, if this is as accessible as I can do, then maybe taking the step forward, and this can also be something that we can put into our portfolio as well. I think your future employers will also value these experiences.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting at is that actually time commitment is an issue for everyone, right? Because we may be a student, we are wearing a professional hat, we are a daughter, we are a son. So I think it's really about pacing yourself, knowing how to manage your energy, your time, so that you don't burn out. And I think it's actually one very important thing is also about support system. Yeah, so that although volunteering can be a very lonely journey, it's true, but I think you know that you need to find different outlets so that you can also make sure that you channel the so-called certain negativity, out. Yeah, so that it's also healthier for you. Yeah, then I think just now you also mentioned about there are so many different causes. Okay, so I think one of the challenge faced by volunteers is that first timer especially, they say that there are so many causes out there. So like although you mentioned as long as this is something you feel aligned to, you can try out. But there are so many out there, right? So how exactly would you advise for first timer especially, like how should they start off their first volunteer experience? How should they go about selecting a cause that is like closer to their heart? Yeah, maybe we can have Zoe.
I think that draws me to the question of why I applied for a position at SOS. So for me, I kind of have like a personal experience with my uncle. So he was a drug addict and he was really out of his wits, desperate and all. And he just out of the blue one day received a call from the police that he killed himself. And then he jumped down from the floor. And that it affected my family. So it was a case that really affected me. That is the reason why I chose SOS. Sorry, I don't know why I'm crying. Yeah. Yeah, it happens. Oh my god. Yeah. Anyway, so sorry, back to the question. What was the question?
No worries. As in, I'm saying that how you encourage first timer to volunteer. Yeah, maybe you can take some time to. Thank you so much for the tissue.
Yeah, I think for volunteers who wanted to volunteer to any of the cause that they relate to, probably be open to any feedback, be receptive to it, and be open to learning as well. And I think this will help you to reflect better in terms of where you want to go in your life. Yeah. And I mean, it would be a great way to also practice your empathy and your communications with one another through volunteering.
Thank you so much for sharing a very personal story. Yeah, maybe we go on to Gary first. Yeah.
Actually, Zoe is not alone. A lot of us and a lot of my colleagues joined the social service because of personal reasons as well. So can resonate totally what she just shared. Also, just to kind of like just build upon the point. As an employer, I do look at volunteering experience. And obviously, as someone who is hiring volunteer managers here and everything, whether you volunteer or not is important to me, And so yeah, please, do volunteer. It's something that even in my previous job as sales director, I do look at volunteering that you do, because it's also an indicator of the soft skills that you may have as part of your repertoire of skill sets that you carry. Yeah, so these are all things that softer side that your potential employers will actually look at. So on that note on how to start volunteering, my advice is always start small. Right? Start small, start where you are, right? Actually, every single one of you volunteer, right? It's just that you all don't realize it only, right? When your teacher asks you to help with something, and you do it, you're volunteering, right? So we are all volunteering. So I was at Starbucks just now, right? So I took over a table, and then the two guys just left their cups on the table, right? When I helped to clear the table, and everything, and so that's part of volunteering, right? So it just start small, and if you really want to volunteer with an organization, then my encouragement is that start where you are as well. Like where, if you're in school, I think start at the place where it's most convenient for you. So if you're in school, if your school offer something and you really do not know, you're not sure children, youth, seniors, or even mental health, or disability, whatever your school has, just jump on it and just go and try it out, and it's just go through that self-discovery journey, for yourself, like what really appeals to you, right? So you could actually try children, you could try seniors, and stuff, and very soon I think you will land on something, right? And there's also volunteering that not necessarily serve the beneficiaries as well, and sometimes there are volunteer opportunities that you tap on your skill, like what the other panelists talk about, tap on your skill for you to actually use the skill sets that you already have or you want to develop. Right, so like say for example, at my team, we have what we call associates volunteer managers. So these are volunteers, right? They're coming on board, and we have a very good one currently with us. Her name is Ellen, and she's almost like our staff, right? And she call the volunteer, and talk to the volunteers, help them with the registration, and stuff like that. And she's in between jobs, but this is just something that she's just helping out. So if you have time on your hand, you can do that. If you don't have time on your hand, then just do whatever that is available in your vicinity and what you share. Yeah.
Okay, for me, I see this as volunteering in terms of like trying to figure out like what kind of skill sets you have yourself. I think there are the different forms of volunteering, or like more like intentions. Like why do you want to volunteer? Can look very different for different people. Some of my friends who started volunteering, they told me that because they got nothing to do during their holidays. Some of them said that because they want to look good on their portfolio. Some of them say that they want to make friends, and all these reasons are valid. It's not like this is better than the other. There are also other reasons like, because I want to give back, I want to help the low income families, for example. And I think this intention helps you to kind of navigate better in terms of like what kind of causes or what kind of area they would like to work on. So there are things like environment as well, right? So there are also organizations that are doing beach cleanups. If you are looking for supporting like education equity, then there's like mentoring and like tutoring for students or like youths in low-income families. Then if you talk about like elderly in isolation, you have things like befriending, and these are different forms of volunteering that exist now. And I think as we go like in the future, there will be more and more that comes along the way. After finding out your motivation, I think, okay, this is speaking from my own experience. I think in the past, my intention was, okay, it's just a VIA project, so I'll just do it because school asked me to do it, so I'll do. And after that, like it's just from that first touch point to kind of realize that, actually this is quite interesting, and yeah, this is very important, but why isn't people caring enough? Then, so after secondary school, I went to Ngee Poly to further my studies in business and social enterprise, to learn how business and social impact can come together. Then I think even so, as I go along the way, it's not just the idea of volunteering, but how can you make a like difference to someone? So for example, like what Gary mentioned, like just helping someone to clear a table, I think that is one small step they can take as well. With the intention of volunteering, I see this not so much of helping people who are less privileged. I think that concept is what I hear very common from my friends, but it kind of suggests to me that the person would have an intention that, or at least an idea of looking down at the person because you are from the bottom, so I want to help you to live up. And what I prefer to use as a synonym is more of support. So to see that the communities are able on their own, and then how can we like pull them up from the bottom. So in a way, it's not so much of sympathy, like yeah, because you, for example, low income again, like, because you know money, so I will give you money to do whatever. And I think it's more of that empathy to trying to relate how they really are, because I think this privilege that we have every day, imagine, right, just let me paint a picture for you. You wake up on a sunny morning, then you'll probably be like hungry, so you think about, okay, what kind of food do I want to eat for breakfast? Then maybe you showered already, and then you'll think about what kind of clothes I want to wear. These are quite common for all of us, but I think if you try to take a step back and see like other people's experiences, having a proper shelter, having proper food, all these are privileges that we have that is not very accessible and common for others. And to be able to have this awareness helps you to see this world differently. But to first do that, you have to take the step to pick up volunteering opportunities to be in this space. I have some friends who are like doing social work as a profession now, and they told me that this was never their option ever. It just came across by chance, and they just tried it out, and this was something that stuck with them. And I think similar to Zoe, it's something that they never look back and they find meaning in that. So I think that's how we can start by taking a first step into volunteering.
Yeah, I think actually doing anything for the first time is scary, right? But the thing is actually hearing from our panelists, volunteering for the first time is not as scary as you think. Sometimes it's really about finding something that's very close to your heart. So maybe let me share a bit about myself also, because my very first volunteering experience is because of my primary school friend, who I'm still in contact with. So actually, we are very young. We were like, I know her in primary one. Then that was when her mom is really terminally ill. Then we actually decided to go to hospice to visit her mom and other residents when we were in primary 6. It wasn't like a CIP or a VIA project, it was a self-initiated event. And I think it hit me a lot because like this is something that I've seen, just around me. Yeah, so that's why I think I didn't think about anything, as in I didn't think about the causes that I really want to support. I just want to support my friend, her mom, and other residents. So sometimes it could be just, the people around you that impacted you, and naturally you will find a cause that you resonate. Yeah, and another thing I feel that is really being open-minded, because sometimes it's like, you maybe have not thought about volunteering at all, but your friend decides to join you one day, hey, you want to go or not, since we're all bored. Yeah, so I think having an open mind is also good, because like, you don't think so much, you just go ahead with your friends, at least you have company with you, and then maybe from there you will realize the joy of volunteering and giving back. Yeah, so I think all these are certain ways that maybe can help you to get started on your journey as well. Yeah. So maybe from here, I think volunteers I think you'll also be interested to find out whether the panelists, the organizations have any available opportunities. So maybe you can hear from them. Yeah. Maybe back to Gary first.
Okay. I just want to comment on what she shared, and it's the attitude of us going into volunteering, right? It's very key. Don't look at the beneficiaries as someone that you need to help. I always like to share with people, the group of people that we are supporting, right, has human dignity as well, right? And no one wants to be disrespected. No one wants to receive help in a very undignified way. And a lot of times, unknowingly, when we go into a volunteering, we could have that mindset that the greater is blessing the lesser, but sometimes the reverse is true, right? way the family is coping with the situation in their life despite the circumstances, and how they are actually going about the circumstances, right, may teach you a lot of lessons. And this is also something that we actually very, very strongly believe in, that volunteering, right, actually has a transformative power, right, to help to transform your life as well. And this is something that we are also very, very passionate about. And the reason why we do what we do, and the reason how I get my teams to continue to work with us as well, because this is, so volunteering is really not just about like, you come, help me carry this box from point A to point B, and everything. But for us, right, to tell you the reason, right, why you need to carry this box from point A to point B for this person, because how you are helping this person, because this person is disabled. Example, right? That something that you think that is easy for us is actually takes a lot for this person, right? And how you are actually supporting this person, and the person may not want your help actually, and typically they do not want your help. They will try and find means of ways, right, to actually shift the box from point A to point B, right, by themselves without asking for help. But the way we actually can actually help them carry that box from point A to point B, right, in a dignified way that is not like looking down on them, right, that is going to speak volumes to the beneficiaries that we're supporting, and as well as helping you to actually have that perspective, right, of how we could actually go a long way, right, to actually support one another. And so I really believe very, very strongly that volunteering has this power, right, and it's a great platform to facilitate personal transformation. Yeah, so volunteering opportunities, we have a lot. Go to the website www.carecorner.org.sg to check them out. We have volunteering opportunities from children to youth to seniors, mental health, as well as families. But I think something that's more relevant for students probably will be in the area of children. I think we do not need them right now, but the reading program that I talked about just now, we do need volunteers from time to time. So I think opening might be taking place soon, maybe at the second half of the year. Seniors befriending is something that we're always looking out for, and don't belittle the power that you can bring to the seniors. Just by you being there, right, and a lot of times, right, the seniors are just so happy, right, that you are there, you are present. And that is something that is very, very powerful. That sometimes you think that you go there, right? Wow, why am I doing that? I can't even speak Hokkien, I can't even speak Cantonese. This senior can only speak Hokkien, I don't know how to speak Hokkien, But you being there, right, present for the senior, just sitting down there, maybe sometimes just holding their hand, and everything, right? It means a lot to the senior, right? So that 1 hour, 2 hours with them sometimes is very, very precious for the senior. And so I will encourage you all to look at maybe more of the seniors portion and the children area. We do need some support in terms of mental health, but that's probably something you can actually also check out, check it out as well. But if you have anything that you feel as volunteers, as students, you want to bring to the community to help the community, we are also more than happy to help you with the journey as well. So it's a two-way journey. So it's not just volunteering opportunities from us, but if you have any ideas, you feel that there's a better way to help a certain group of beneficiaries or certain portion of the communities, let us know. Also come and have a conversation with us, and we can craft something with you as well.
There are two ways of volunteering opportunities that you can look into. One would be service-based. You can choose to volunteer for us for our 24/7 hotline, CareText, or even in our signature events that we hold annually every September in conjunction with World Suicide Prevention Day. Or you can also choose to volunteer with us through being a facilitator or co-facilitator for our programs and services. And then the other kind of volunteering opportunities would be skill-based. So based on what you have, like on your area of expertise and years of experience, you can actually let us know how you can support SOS in the areas of what you can do. So for example, if you wish to volunteer because you are very good at graphic designing or you are good at finance, right? You can let us know that this is the area of help that you can support us with, and we'll be happy to start a conversation with you.
Okay, for me, I have two lobangs. One is from Unseen City. So as we move on to different thematic issues, the one we're focusing this year is on sex ed. Why we're doing so is because I briefly mentioned earlier, but how people are not really treating sex ed very seriously. I think in my school and my experience, the most I remember is abstinence. But like things on sexual health, things on LGBTQ+, your identity and all that, is not very much focused on, and I think because there's this lack of awareness, there are some forms of discriminations that exist in our society. And that's what we're working towards, to raise awareness about this issue. So what we have, or at least for the volunteers we are looking at, is more on content writing. We find that because platforms are Mothership, and even though it's like still articles and words, but it's more on the engaging and like bite-sized format, and that's what we are looking for. So if you happen to have interest in like copywriting, if you have interest in like sex ed topics also, you can like reach out to me. I'll be here later on as well. So that's for Unseen City. For another project I'm working on is with NUS. It's with Communications and New Media Society. I think these two projects that I'm working on with Unseen City and with NUS is with my interests and also experiences in this communication and advocacy space. I spent some time like working with social enterprises, and I realized that this marketing isn't just about promoting businesses, but how can we get people to be interested in a cause and to want to volunteer or support or like donate and so on and so forth. So with NUS side, what we are doing is this tertiary-wide competition. It will take place year-long, but it consists of workshops on video production, on social change communication. How do you tell stories for the organizations, for the cause, with nuances that you don't just, like we mentioned about the dignity part. And these are things that will be covered in the competition as well. So we also have our partner, GHY Media, Culture and Media. They specialize in video production, and they'll be doing workshops for us as well. I think this is like quite a good chance, right? If you talk about volunteering and you don't really know what you want to do, because this is where you get to learn a skill, you get to meet people outside of your school, people from the industry as well. And I think in a way you can also treat this as a volunteering experience to see like whether this is something that I'm interested in. For example, if you happen to be in communications course right now, you might see how you can apply this into real world and also apply it to social impact space. I think it's not a very commonly known thing, because when we talk about volunteering, a lot of the impression we have is like helping people from the ground, like doing befriending, talking to elderly, and interacting with them like on a ground level. But there are also other ways to make impact in terms of like advocacy and how can you, like what we're trying to do to get people to be interested. So these are different ways that because you will see like our different organizations will tackle on different various kinds of impact. And if you are interested, you can go to our Instagram. It's nuscnm.pitchit. Pitchit as in PITCHIET.
So before we move on to the final question to the panelists, let me refresh your memories again. If you want any lobangs for volunteering, Care Corner, Samaritans of Singapore, and also Unseen City. Yeah, please feel free to interact with the panelists later if you want to ask them more about that. Yeah. Okay, so maybe the final part. So I think we actually shared a lot already, right? You know, like how can we encourage first-timers especially? But do you have any final words of encouragement to people who are still very hesitant to, start off their volunteering journey? Maybe start off with Gary again.
My advice is still the same. Start small, right? It's like I always use this analogy. If you want to start to get fitter, right, and you want to, like, in the end, you want to do a marathon, right? You have to start with your 1 kilometer first, right? So it's the same thing, right, in volunteering. So don't worry about your reasons, right? You can have all sorts of reasons. Your reason may not be good, it's fine as well. That you want to put your volunteering experience in your CV, that's fine. And most organizations will not screen you out because your reason is no good, right? And so start small and start where you are, right? And I really believe that you should be able to find something that you will be able to do and you want to do. Yeah.
Actually, my answer is the same as him. Yeah, start small and find a cause that you can relate to and just go for it. So I remember when I shared before, like, I wanted to volunteer, but I don't know how to volunteer. So back then when I was quite young in poly days, I started small, so I actually went to tutor my neighbor, like really very small, and she was only like 4 or 5 years old. I just wanted to try out how it feels like, and yeah, it gives me a sense of fulfillment when like we have spelling tests and she scored full marks, and I was really happy for her. So that's how I get started. But like when I have the stresses of the academy and having to go to work to pay for my education and all, I stopped volunteering. But that would be how I would like to continue. I were to have the time and the money for it.
Okay, advice. I think similar to both of them, but mine is more on just do it. I think as a student, right, sometimes I also have like, I need to plan my timetable. I need to, okay, maybe in May I'll be better, but then things just keeps coming to you. Opportunities are always there, and then sometimes you just like keep postponing or procrastinating because of all these like different opportunities. So just do it in a sense like, if you don't know, it's okay, just go in. You can have like a probation kind of, you can let the volunteer coordinator know as well. Like, I'm not too sure, but I would like to try for 1 or 2 months. I think like communicating this expectation helps both parties in the sense that the volunteer coordinator understands like your perspective and where you're coming from. It also helps them to better design their volunteering experiences for you. And then also you get to try, perhaps if you can do an arrangement, you can try out different domains or different communities. So for example, if you are interested to volunteer at Care Corner, maybe you can negotiate like, okay, maybe first 2 months I work with youth, then next 2 months etc. I guess that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, I also want to share. I just want to say that really is look within your heart. Yeah, so like this. Okay, welcome back. Okay, yeah, I just want to say that it's really look within your heart, and then I think keep an open mind. Yeah, and then just do it, like she said, just do it. Yeah, then somehow before you realize you're already there. Yeah. So I mean, thank you so much, panelists, for sharing so much. I believe the audience have like burning questions for you all. So like I'll be opening up the questions to the floor. So if you have any questions for our panelists, you can just raise your hand, and then you can direct to the panelists. You can like, oh, I want Gary to answer this. Yeah, then you can feel free to direct your questions. Then I think IG Live, I will need the working team to keep a lookout for the questions also. Yeah, so is there anyone who have any questions for any of our panelists?
I think you guys handle a lot of volunteers, and you mentioned about, for example, so you mentioned appreciating them to keep them motivated. I think that happens, but that's not like an everyday kind of interaction with them. So how do you actually motivate them, especially if there's a lot of volunteers, to continue to want to volunteer with your organization, and like what Gary said, even the objectives of why they volunteer to slowly change their perspective. How do you guys, are there any tips that you can share with us to help us get there?
Yep. I was a teacher, right? So I believe in facilitation. Alright, and I was a PE teacher, so I strongly believe in experiential education. And the essence of experiential education is to help our students to process the experience that they have went through, right? So likewise, it's the same as well. So when the volunteers go through the experience, right, it is essential, in my opinion, to help them process the experience that they just went through, right? Asking simple questions that, what feelings did you have, right, from that volunteer experience, right? And what do you think causes that experience? What causes their emotions to come up, you know? And why are these emotions coming up for you, right? And then processing that for them, like making and linking it back to their lives, you know, and journalizing it. I think generalizing it. So I think those are very essential things that we want to do at every volunteering sessions with our volunteers. And I think in terms of engaging, this portion is something we rely a lot on the volunteer leaders. We get our volunteer leaders because the volunteer leaders are closer to the volunteers, and therefore we believe that the volunteer leaders are the best people, right, to actually help us to actually continuously engage as well as motivate the volunteers. And so typically we will check in with the volunteers whether they need any resources from us, you know, and stuff. So we will prepare things like games, or I know that SOS actually every Friday they will send a newsletter, right? Cat Corner do it only once a month. We need to learn from them. Maybe every Friday. We only do it once a month. We also have a Telegram chat, you know, to continuously engage our volunteers. This volunteer engagement is probably something we can do more, but it's always a balance because we are really taking up a lot of their time volunteering, and engaging them through other means will also mean taking up a lot of our time as well. But so it's sometimes we want to rely on the volunteer leaders as well, because we want things to be as organic as possible also. So we don't want it to make it look forced and structured, but we want to try to let it come up from the ground and then be as organic as possible. And so we will rely on the volunteer leaders a lot to do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gary. I hope you answered the question. Yeah, so does anyone else have any questions to raise? Okay, maybe I think you'll need some time to think, right? So maybe I want to pose a question for what Sorry, I need to hold on to my question first because there are questions from the ground. Okay, let me see first. Okay, so one of the questions is that they say that what are some one or two things that are most important to you in a volunteering role? So because it's to you, so I don't know, maybe I think it can depends on how you want to decipher this question. Maybe it's to ask who is handling the volunteers or interacting the volunteers. Like what do we look out for in the volunteers maybe? Yeah, who would like to answer this question? Maybe Anna, would you like to take on?
Okay, go first. I think one of the things that I will look for is the interest and the willingness to learn. In a sense that when I mentioned content writing, that NCCT is looking for volunteers. Our team is quite small, so in a sense, while we're able to share wisdom and feedback to one another, I think something that I want to acknowledge is I'm also not an expert myself. But with this community of people who are interested to learn, interested to do, I think it helps to get everyone's morale up together, and it's the understanding that it's okay if you don't know, as long as you're willing to try, we can figure this out together. So willing to put yourself in that role, I think that's one of the important things that I'll look out for. Maybe I'll think of the next one. We think about it first.
For us, we look for two qualities. One is just simply availability, right? As long as you're willing to be available, typically we will take you. I think the second thing that we actually subtly look out for is actually willingness to learn. And this, the second quality is important for us because sometimes you do not know what you're getting yourself into, right? But you are willing to actually keep an open eye and actually are willing to just learn from us. And I think that probably start well. And of course, there will be other requirements from like age, like kind of skill sets or anything. So those are the hard things, and we just make sure that you actually check those boxes, according to what our service points needs, or according to what our community partner needs. And then these two qualities of ability and as well as willingness to learn is something that we actually we are very mindful about. Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope this, I think Gary and Anna, I hope it answers Soni's question. Yeah, so another question posted by Yingzhi is that she wants to know how is it like to work with people that have the same belief and motivation to do volunteering in this sector. Yeah, so maybe we can have Zoe this time.
So what comes out of it is great friendship. So, I mean, like I say, I don't volunteer as much as others, and I don't have much volunteer experience. So, working in SOS with like-minded people from various departments with the same goal to save lives and to be an available lifeline to anyone in crisis. I think out of it, right, what we get is really great friendship because we are all in this together.
Does Gary have anything to add?
I would love to employ them. Yeah, I mean, great friendships, relationships, definitely. And I do have volunteers who became colleagues as well, right? In fact, I have my current colleague who is doing admin for us. She used to be a volunteer, right? And I was very, very impressed with her because as a volunteer befriender, she came up to me, right? And let me know about all the situations that she has seen in the seniors, and everything, and what can be done, and what Care Corner can look into, and blah blah blah. And I was totally impressed, right? And then when she applied for the job, I almost like, I actually no need to, just take her. Yeah, yeah, we do have quite a fair bit of volunteers that become very close to us, and we also become a very we do go out to for dinner and drinks, and all these sort of things. So that's friendship is definitely something that's very, very precious that come out as a result of this close voluntary relationship. Yeah.
Anything from Anna to add?
The same though. Like, I agree on like the friendships and bonds. I think that's something that keeps myself going as well. I think not just like from volunteers, but also the people that I work with in terms of like beneficiaries. So on top of managing Unseen City, I'm also volunteer sometimes to support residents living in en bloc selected schemes to kind of relocate. And in that phase of volunteering, right, it's very nice to know that the residents can remember your name, even though they are like they are not trying to stereotype, but like old people who sometimes will have dementia, but then them remembering your face and like to welcome your presence when you volunteer. I think that's like, yeah, very heartwarming, yes, and it comes both ways. So not just with the volunteers, but also with the people that we serve.
I agree, because like when you do, like for example, you distribute certain food items to seniors, they tend to ask, 你叫什么名字? Like they like to ask for your name and they try to register. So these are little details that they have picked up. So it's actually very, very like heartwarming for us. Yeah, so I think on this same note, right? So I think Jasmine actually asked, I think because all of you also have volunteering experiences yourself, so I think they just want to know, when you are volunteers yourself, what are some of the challenges you face, and actually how do you overcome this? Maybe like I'm sure the professional experience also will help a bit, right? Yeah, so maybe you all can share more about all these challenges and solutions.
Commitment, right? It's the same challenge that we all have, time, right? And I typically try not to commit too much if I can help it. So I volunteered in quite a few places. This is also something I just need to manage, so it's time management, personal energy management, and stuff. So I try to use my knowledge in this area and experience in this area to actually also sometimes guide my friends who are actually I'm volunteering with as well, to actually let the perspective and give the reason why certain things are being done the way. And so let's say for example, if any organization I volunteer with, if I can, I will ask for permission, and usually I will not try to impose. And I typically will not reveal that I'm in charge of volunteer as well. But if I see something, I typically will just ask for permission. Whether they mind if I share some perspective with them, and if they give me the permission, then I will share. Otherwise, I'll just do what they ask me to do, and be a good follower also.
I think something that I struggle with, I think this is also because I'm managing a lot of things. I think that's a part about facing burnout in a sense, because one moment I can be doing this, and then once my 2 hours is up, I have to move on to the next thing. And even within Unseen City itself, as a co-founder, there's different departments and functions that I have to look after. And I think as a volunteer, I sometimes will feel like not wanting to go there because I'm very tired. I have to travel so far and so on and so forth. But I think it helps to remind myself again, and also just showing up. I think there were a few occasions where I really felt very tired, but I still went there. I didn't intend to stay long, but the conversations with the elderly and the residents just made it flow, and it's just talking to a friend, And it's not with the intention okay, I want to go and help this elderly, but it's more checking in. They also checking with me, asking me how have I been doing and all that. Something that it's kind of like a challenge in both ways, managing and also volunteering itself. That I find communication is really quite important. In a sense that, for example, if you are not able to make it for a certain day, it's very important to inform the related stakeholders or the people involved. Oh sorry, I cannot do this because blah blah. But you don't just go MIA and just disappear. I think disappearing and MIAing is something that as a volunteer coordinator I find it a bit challenging. But as long as I know that they're able to communicate, they tell me why they can't do it, so on and so forth, then at least I know and I can check in with them on a personal level whether they need more time to do on their tasks as well.
Totally understand. Yeah, maybe I just want to tweak the question a bit also, because I think, just like you mentioned, time commitment, burnout. So I think one of the challenge that was raised yesterday, they say that, how do you unload the negativity? Because sometimes when you help out, you also feel helpless. You feel that you're just doing this much. Yeah, and then they don't really know how to share all these feelings also. So maybe as you interact with different volunteers within the organization, how do you also tell them how to unload all this kind of negative feelings as well? Maybe you can start off with Zoe.
That's why I feel a strong support structure is very, very important. So adding on to the point that he mentioned that every Friday we send out a newsletter to our volunteers, and on top of it we do have a gathering, we call it a TGIF gathering at night, where the volunteers can come and get together and know the other volunteers as well. So this is the space and the time where they are able to interact with one another and to possibly unload their negative feelings and share their common experience handling the hotline and the caretakers. That would be one way.
Okay. I think we need to grow in a level of self-awareness, right? We will not know that you're carrying negative energy if you are not self-aware, right? So there's a level of self-awareness that we all need to grow in. So having a support structure is very, very important. So I have friends who will be able to tell you that, hey, you're a bit negative, and stuff like that. So have friends who will tell you things to your face, And I think the role of the volunteer leader is also very important as well, right? The volunteer leader has to be a pretty good facilitator to be able to spot such stuff as well, and then to be able to debrief the team and as well facilitate and process the experience with the team of volunteers. But that said, nothing can take away the importance of self-awareness. Self-awareness, because how you are as a being that basically is your holding capacity, right? To be able to hold how much negative energy you're able to hold and release, right? And so every one of us have our own coping mechanism, right? To do that. So I think that self-awareness is something that is very, very key, especially in the volunteering aspect. Even I think as workers in the social service sector, it's also something that is very important for us. Personally, for me, I go for therapy on a regular basis, right? So I do see a therapist at least once a month, to just kind of process, my feelings, and my trauma, my past traumas, and everything. Because what I experienced in the past could have a negative and sometimes unknown and transference to the people that you actually are serving as well. So these are all things that we ought to take note of. Yeah.
I agree. I think volunteering, like you said, is a very self-discovery process. Yeah, so it's really through this process you get to know yourself better. Some things you are still working on, or realizing some strength that you didn't know. Yeah, so I think really don't be afraid to take the first step. It could be difficult, but if you have like-minded individuals, especially everyone here today, I'm sure you all share the same passion. Yeah, so I think it's really, have people to go with you so that, they can form your support system. Yeah, anything to add from your side?
I think one of the negativities that I find myself having sometimes is feeling like my residents feel that I'm not helpful enough. In a way, it could look like I visited them, I talked to them about something, and then they shared with me about maybe they lost their job, for example. And in a way, okay, so there was this incident. I wasn't able to directly help the resident because I didn't have like all the job lobangs at hand. I didn't know of anything also. I didn't know where to look for jobs and all that. So when I left that session, I was feeling quite down in the sense that, I'm kind of like wasting their time because I can't, be beneficial to them. And I think I carried that emotion for quite a while. But I think it's like what Gary mentioned about this self-awareness, that it's not really your fault that this happened. I think some of this helplessness you feel is they come from systemic issues and structures that you can't change on an individual level. But I do say that by being there on the individual presence with the residents, I felt like even though I wasn't able to help them, but I can see how sometimes in the future when they needed help, they will also ask me. In a way, it's like to kind of seek advice, and if I happen to know of any resources for them. I won't know it 100%, but I think it's helpful to share with the other volunteers what happened, and also can express your emotions so that you can share advice and also navigate resources together.
So I think we shared a bit more about our personal experiences. So I think the next question is a bit back to our professional hats again. So from VJ, the question is that are there causes that are yet to be dealt with within the volunteering community? If so, how can this gap be addressed?
I don't know, you tell me. Yeah, I mean, if you don't feel that there's any causes that it's not dealt with, let us know. Yeah, and we can do something about it. Yeah, suicide prevention, suicide understanding, mental health understanding is definitely one thing that I think we need more awareness of. Yeah.
I think actually for me to share, I think because community chairs actually support 5 different causes. So actually the more commonly supported causes are like seniors, children, youth, people people tend to shun away from like persons with mental health or people with disabilities. I think people are just afraid, like, I do not know how to interact with them. What if, like, I do not mean it, but I have hurt them during the process. So I think there's a lot of such concerns. That's why I think people are taking a step back. Yeah, so probably these are certain causes that really need more support, I believe. Yeah, then maybe from Anna, because I know you you try to do things like make it more bite-sized for readers, right? Then if you come across certain causes that you feel that it needs more advocacy besides sex ed just now that you said, yeah.
If I were to share, I think it's very biased because it's coming from my own personal experiences also. I think earlier in the panel, we also mentioned about how people in this social impact space is mostly, at least driven by one of our experiences that shaped us to come into this space. For myself, I grew up in a family with financially under-resourced background. So working with families in this space, in terms of education, in terms of like well-being and all that, is something that is closer to my heart. So that's where I see there is a gap that is pressing. Even though I think it depends on different people. It could be like your relatives, it could be your friends. I think that all these issues are like within us. And I think the main point about Unseen City is also to get everyone to see the issues that are hidden in our society. That's why we call it Unseen City, because I think when we think about Singapore, tourists would think like, oh, MBS, would think about all the very good places. But within Singapore, you would see like in a neighborhood, maybe just a few blocks down, you'll see like a rental flat. Maybe you'll see like animals being abused. There are recent cases about this as well. And all these issues are there. It's not so much about having it like appear, but more of trying to go into it and to dig up so that we can learn more about it.
Yeah, I think to answer VJ's question, I think it's really back to looking, within your heart and then maybe around you. Are there certain causes that you feel that you can actually be a part of and do your effort? I think this is something that you can get started also. Yeah. So I think because of time constraint, right, maybe we can have one question from the floor if anyone have. Like, do you have anything to check in?
Or maybe I can just shout out. So, given that everybody's looking for volunteers, always looking for more manpower, be it as a hire or volunteers, right? How are there other ways we can use perhaps technology or use our current manpower in a more efficient, smart way to act as a force multiplier to basically have greater impact for whatever beneficiaries we are serving? What do you guys think?
Yeah, so which is why I'm not speaking on behalf of the government official over there, so she can chairs ma.
No, I'm ex-NTU student. Yeah, ex-NTU student. We are all schoolmates, right? We are all schoolmates, yes.
Okay. So I think there are efforts and initiative by our governing agencies to look into this. So there's actually two platforms. I'm pretty sure you all know about them. The marketing done quite well, giving.sg as well as volunteer.sg. Right? So I think these are the two platforms, right? And volunteer.sg is also an attempt whereby it's also a volunteer management system whereby they attempt to actually match volunteers with relevant volunteering opportunities that the volunteers are actually interested in. So actually there are efforts, and I'm not too sure what's the progress status, but I understand that there are people looking into to see how we could actually put charities on board on this, so that volunteers, if you want to volunteer in Singapore, you just go through this one source, and hopefully that will actually help to kind of allocate resources a lot better. Yeah. So I'm not too sure how long this project will take to actually come to fruition, but as you can imagine, it will be a very complex thing. Also, akan datang nanti. Yeah.
I know we are looking to enhance
enhance our volunteer management system to make it a more robust one. And I can probably speak on behalf of donor management as well, because I'm part of the donor management and fundraising team. So for us, we do not have any system in place yet because we only started fundraising 2 years ago. So right now we are looking at a more integrated system. We call it like an ERP system, where we can house the volunteer management system, the donor management system, as well as our finance and other systems together to make it more integrated, so that we can have more efficient and more effective processes in place in the future.
I think maybe for Unseen City, because you are very new, right? So not too sure whether you have any creative solutions in terms of handling.
In terms of handling, so the question was, how can technology be used to maximize social impact, correct? Okay, I see this as the methods of using technology, in the sense that we have to improve internal processes. I think that's very helpful, because if you have to spend time to do it manually, that is really a resource spent on something else. And if you were to say you can save that time by using technology, that would mean that you can spend your time more meaningfully. The other thing about technology is, so you mentioned, if I summarize it here, you mentioned about accessibility of volunteering opportunities. I think the other part I see technology, not so much for Unseen City, but in a more volunteer perspective, is when we see COVID coming, and then everyone is using Zoom and like the online platforms, there are communities that are left behind because of these advancements in technology that we're using. So when we talk about technology in maximizing social impact, I see this in 3 ways. And the other method would be how can we use it to catch up, to improve the digital literacy of the people in the communities. So like we have students who have to do home-based learning. There are some organizations I see to provide laptops, but so what if you provide laptops? Will they be able to use it? Do you think they have learned it in school? If they are in primary school, their parents doesn't have the resources to provide that. If you talk about like elderly, when you have to use like the COVID app to go into malls, right? Then do elderly know how to do it? Like what? So there's this always this gap when we talk about these different aspects of things. And I guess as a more individual level, there are organizations that are already working on this that we can volunteer for. But of course, I have some friends also who are like super good at coding, right? So they could also like, if this is one of your skill sets, you can also use this to perhaps create an app to maybe like do some socialization so that people don't feel isolated during COVID and so on and so forth.
Okay, I need to put back my professional hat for a bit. Okay, so I think it's definitely a work in progress in general for everyone. So in terms of volunteering opportunities, right, actually you all can actually self-source. So just now Gary mentioned giving.sg, SG Cares app is actually another. So that's why and they actually ask they actually help you to filter accordingly. Are you a first timer, or then the types of volunteering experiences you are looking at? Yeah, is it seniors or is it children, the different causes? And then it could be like, are you looking for more skills-based set, or you're looking at service-based? So actually there are certain, the use of technology that's already in place. Then definitely there's on the other hand whereby there's a lot of work in progress, whereby I think we are trying to work a lot with the SSAs in general. There are certain grants, to really support, to help them improve their organizational capabilities. Yeah, so it's really to everyone's working very hard together to try to develop a tool so that it makes work more efficient for us, so that we don't feel burnout. Yeah, better manage everything in all in all. So I would say it's just a work in progress. Yeah. So maybe that will be the final question because of time constraint. Yeah, but really thank you so much to everyone here today to participate in this segment, especially to our panelists. So can we put our hands together to thank all 3 panelists? So also thank you for your time here. I hope that you all have gained valuable insights about volunteerism. Yeah, so I mean, although it's a bit late, but feel free to stay around and network around with, once again, broadcast for them, Gary from Care Corner, Zoe from Samaritans of Singapore and Anna from Unseen City. So if you have anything to find out from them, yeah, just feel free to connect, yeah, and then just hang around here as well. Yeah, then I know that they have also prepared dinner, so feel free to grab some food and then grab a seat and then yeah, have a conversation with any one of us. Thank you so much.